Welcome back, everybody. This is the 4th episode of 50 Years Dead. I'm your host, Cosmic Charlie, and I am talking to you about the 1973 Grateful Dead tour. A wonderful tour, a wonderful year in the Grateful Dead history, an in-between year, a year of discovery, and something that is often overlooked in the Grateful Dead catalog. The concept of this show is connecting philosophy, history, music history, and personal history with the Grateful Dead, in particular this tour. It's really a show-by-show account of the tour. And I think the best way to get out of this is to listen to each show with me and figure out what you like about the tour and what are some of the connections you're making on each night. What's standing out? What are some moments that resonated with you? And it's like simple stuff. And I think that's what the cool thing about music is. And that's why we're doing this exercise, is that it could be a piano lick by Keith, or a weird drum fill by Bill, or a thundering bass line from Phil, or the obvious, a dramatic moment in history that Jerry Garcia gives us. There's two main songwriters for the Grateful Dead, and that's Jerry and Bob, but they're not really treated as a Lennon-McCartney-esque or Plant other guy. What's his name? Page. See that guy? Or a Greenwood and York. You kind of focus in on Jerry, I think because of his voice and his presence about him. But as you listen to each show, and the more I listen to the shows, the more importance I give Bobby in really giving us this Grateful Dead experience. I was always like, even a couple shows ago, I was like, God, some of these Bobby songs, and you know, Cold Rain and Snow is still skipperoony for me. But these Bobby's songs and the songs that he takes the lead on are very good, and they paint this picture. And you take Bobby out of this band, and it's not the Grateful Dead. Just like I was saying about Donna, or Keith, or Bill, or Phil, in the 73 tour. What makes this band so unique is that it gives you everything. Each band member keeps each other honest musically, and they let each other explore. And that's what's so cool that I'm picking up along this journey. We're still in February in this episode 4. We're talking today about the University of Illinois shows. This is going to be for 2/21/73 and 2/22/73. And it's nice to couple this up with one podcast show, because it's a double night, and we're putting ourselves in the cosmic atmosphere of this music. These two shows are a great example of why the Grateful Dead became addicting to go to, because they're so different. And every time you go to a show, or every time these people would go to a show, there'll be something new and surprising that they would see and experience. And I imagine in 73, where you can go to the cinema, yeah, you could read books, you can go to ball games, you can go to balls, Like what they do in '73, I guess like the enchantment under the sea ball, that type of thing. But like there's really, I don't know, like about when you think about experiences, it's a whole different way of life. And right now we're in non-stop experiences with endless form of entertainment. But then you go to a Grateful Dead show, and you're used to your experience of going down to the soda fountain shop. I guess it's probably not the 70s. 70s were obviously the counterculture, right in the realms of that. But when I say experiences, I'm just talking about like visual stimulation and emotional stimulation. And right now, we have non-stop versions of that in different facets. But back then, you really were into a show, and your brain was locked into a show. And if you're on psychedelics or not, you're experiencing that show. You're not checking your phone. You're not. Your mind's not going in a million different directions, because that's the way the social media of society has programmed your brain. It was a different way of living, and a different way of brain thoughts 50 years ago, which is crazy because I think 50 years before that wasn't probably that different. And so 50 years, so 1923, 50 years. Let's just say 1923. That experience level, though different, flappers obviously different than hippies, but like the day-to-day experience level is more similar than the day-to-day experience level from 1973 to 2023. So our brains right now are going through something that we've never went through. They're firing on levels that we've never had to go through before. That is to say that I imagine these Grateful Dead shows as being just the end all be all of that year, which is why I think people got addicted to seeing them. And if you were so lucky to have them come around twice, in the case of these University of Illinois shows, it would be hard not to go to both of them to relive that. And I think this is, I forget who was saying it in the Grateful Dead documentary, Long Strange Trip. He was an author, the overalls guy. He's basically saying, I would go to one show and then be like, oh, I'm not going to go to the next show because I just saw them, and what's it going to be? And then sure enough, he would realize that, like, damn, that was the show I should have gone to. And I think these sets of University of Illinois shows are probably, that was probably one of these times. So let's go through each set list, and you can see how they're different. $221.73. The set opens with "Wave That Flag." Me and my uncle, Brown Eyed Women, beat it all down the line. "Loser," "Looks Like Rain," "Row Jimmy," "You Ain't Woman Enough," "Box of Rain," "Big," "Railroad Blues," "Sugary," and then "Around and Around." There are a couple audio glitches in the first couple songs of this. I think I listened to the Charlie Miller transfer on re-listen. And then I'll go through set list. 2 was China Cat, Rider, Jack Straw, Mississippi Half Step, Truckin', I, Stella, Sugar Magnolia, and ends with Casey Jones. What stood out to me in set 1 was Loser. Loser just has a great hook to it. Really stuck out. And Phil on this particular recording really stands out. His rhythm to it is driving this song, and it could be the mix. But I understand now, like, if you go to a bunch of shows, you're going to want to go in the Phil zone and then the Jerry zone or the Jerry area. I don't know what they call it. Just to sort of like experience what each member is bringing. Because if you just listen to Phil on Loser, it's going through great stuff, especially in this rendition. It sort of overpowers the rest of the song in the mix, which is fun. It's great. It's a great way to go through this whole catalog of 73 because the mixes are different, and sometimes something gets mixed up a little bit higher than what it should be. So you get to hear it. It's sort of isolating for you. So you can pick out some things and some licks that you wouldn't normally hear, or you maybe hear a little bit more faintly. Mississippi Half Step in this show seemed a little bit quicker. Maybe they wanted to play it a little more, a little peppy, a little more upbeat for the crowd. So in this version of Mississippi, it's a little bit less of a tingy swing than it is normally. It's a little bit more like run and gun, a little bit more. We're rocking out. We're having fun. I think they're playing a little bit more to the frat crowd here. And I think that comes through in Mississippi Half Step in this version of it. It's not necessarily better or worse. It's just a tad different, sped up. I think if you were to make me decide which version I would like better, probably a slower version than this, but maybe that's just because I'm used to it.
All you've got to live for is what you left behind. Get yourself a powder charge and seal that silver mine. Lost my
songs in general, you like a song sometimes because it transports you back into the moment where you heard that song in a special place, or you were in a special, good or bad, a special, unique spot in your life. And you were familiar with that emotion that you got from the song. And sometimes that overtakes if you actually like the song or not. So you hear the same version of a song and you're like, that's the version that I like. And then you hear a different version and you're like, oh, that's not making the same connections for me. It's not making me feel the same way. Which is sort of proof that music is like, it's all about feeling. It's all about connection. The vibrations connecting with you. And what that's doing to your spirit. We're constantly looking at the past and thinking about the future, and I think when you're listening to music, you should just really experience the music in that moment. It's hard not to reflect, but sometimes we have to treat music like mindfulness, like meditation, where we're like, okay, I'm listening to this particular song in this particular place at this particular time, right now. So what does that mean to me right now? I'm getting a little heady here, but the point is, if you hear a Mississippi half step that's a little faster, don't disregard it. Same thing with classical music. Like, people will be upset about, this Brahms. I went over to the Philharmonic and they played Brahms' Fourth Symphony, and I didn't really like it. They didn't play it like how it should be played. But you don't know what Brahms was thinking when he was composing it. You're just remembering the last time you heard it, and by a different conductor, because Brahms came around before the recording happened. So, you know, who are you to say this isn't sounded right, unless you're like an extreme music theorist and you're looking at the sheets, right? So you can do that with pop music. You can think about that with pop music too. I think like Pop 40, they played a song over and over again and on these Billboard Pop 40 channels, and people start to say they like the song, or when the song comes on, like, oh yeah, this song. Are they saying that they like the song? Is their brain saying this is good music? Or is their brain saying, this is something familiar, I like this because I'm familiar with it? I think a lot of music gets sold because it's in that column, which is why when you listen to a full tour of the Grateful Dead, a full year, you get those similar, oh, I like this because it's familiar to me moments, but you get these little licks, these little Phil bass lines, or these little Keith runs on the piano, that a little extra on Me and My Uncle, that sparks something new and gives you this new sense of excitement. That's why we're Grateful Dead fans. It's for those moments, because it's like listening to a record over and over again, but the record changes. The sequencing is different. The way the songs are, the length of the songs, they're all different. That's why this exercise is so cool. I know I said that before, but in the context of what this show is, in the context of what the 221/73 show is, you're hearing songs a little bit more peppy, and that's, I think, to appease the crowd. Now, if you remember, the show before this was in Chicago, in the city of Chicago, so there are a little bit more heavy songs in that Chicago set list, and they get out of the city, and then they're at Champaign, and they probably are thinking like, okay, let's get some breathing room here. Like we're out in the country a little bit. There's this certain sense of energy that you can get from college campus that a city, it just feels different. So I can see them coming with this playlist with let's just rock out. Another thing that caught my attention, and I'm a big segue guy. I love like making playlists. You know, we get one song that leads into another song, and those moments are what make a great playlist. And the Grateful Dead are masters of that and of transition. What's cool about this whole tour is that they play with this. They've always been in the transitions. I mean, Live Dead, you know, that whole run. But in the 73 tour, you see them experiment a little bit more deeper, and a little bit more a little riskier in their set 2 experimentations and transitions. This is more so later in the tour, when it comes in the fall. But they're playing with it with these new songs and how these songs can segue into each other, in this early February run. In one of those instances, and one of these transitions that just happens, and it comes together, and it's unexpected. One of these special transitions happens between Eyes and Stella Blue in the second set. There was a moment where the band shifted songs from Eyes. Eyes turns into a really existential, slow jam, and the way Eyes starts and the way it continues halfway through the song, it's upbeat. It's you can feel the sunshine on your face when you're listening to the song, and then as the song continues, that sun sets. All things must pass, right? George Harrison. That song sets. And there's this twilight, right? And Eyes goes into this twilight of this slow jam. And then there's this moment where the slow jam, there's this one note in that jam that starts up Stella Blue. It's that moment, the sun sets, it completely goes down from the horizon, and it's this note. There's this note that just takes us into Stella Blue, and then Stella Blue starts, and chills. It's masterful. Something that happened. It's something that, for a show with a couple easy rockers, that moment stood out amongst everything. And then I would argue that these transitions can dictate the powerfulness of the song. That transition sets up the entire song, and you could tell they make that transition, and there's a spirit that goes into them that goes into the way that they approach Stella Blue from that point forward, that it just sets you up. They were set up for success. And that song, through the whole song is powerful as any Stella Blue would get. It's a good way to end the set. There is an encore, Johnny B. Good. So they do this like epic Stella Blue ends the set. People are probably blown away. They go away, they come back, and they play Johnny B. Good. Now, Johnny B. Good came out in 1958. And this is 1973. So imagine, I just think back then, it probably felt like an eternity from 58 to 73. It had to have felt like an eternity. I mean, you think about it now. Imagine the band Squid, who I argue is probably the best band that came out in the last like 3 or 4 years. Imagine if they played I Can Change by LCD Sound System, which came out in 2010. If Squid play that song, and I don't know if this is because I'm getting older, so all the years are sort of blending together, and I'm just thinking everything post 2009 is modern. But if if Squid came out and played I Can Change, I'd be like, oh, cool. Squid's playing LCD Sound System. I wouldn't think like it's like a huge nod to like old rock and roll. Like, you know, like Grateful Dead playing Johnny B. Good. Johnny B. Good's 14 years. Is 14 years or 15 years, whatever, older. But it feels like such an old song. It just feels like ancient when you compare it to the rest of these Grateful Dead songs that came out, 10 years later, right? Or so. The 73 tour feels modern. It feels like a band nowadays could play that exact same set list and it would feel fresh. So set 2, the songs in set 2 could have very well been set 1. I think like if you put all the songs in the exact same order of set 2 into set 1, it would feel like pretty much the same set, minus Eyes and Stella, which would be kind of weird if that was in a set 1. But Mississippi, Rider, I guess these other songs, besides Mississippi and Rider, are usually second set. Truckin', Sugar Magnolia, Casey Jones, but I know they play them in the second set, but they feel like they could be played in the first set, and I bet you at some point they start playing those songs in the first sets later. And I'm again not a Grateful Dead historian, so I can't tell you. I'm just sort of experiencing this at this level for the first time. So a lot of easy rockers in the entire show. They wanted to settle into this college town, I feel. Maybe they were giving the kids the benefit of the doubt compared to the Chicago set list, like I said before. Maybe they just wanted this to be a fun show. Maybe they just had more fun playing this set list, and you got to sort of mix this in a little bit. But the very next night, let's talk about 2/22/73. And this is a more mature set list. This is, like I said, one of those times where I imagine people kicking themselves if they went to the first night and not to the second night. I feel that the Dead trusted the audience a bit more here, and that the audience earned this set list after a night of Easy Rockers the night before. So let's go through it. Set 1, Promised Land, They Love Each Other, El Paso, Birdsong, Mexicali, Deal, Looks Like Rain, Tennessee Jed, Box of Rain, Playing of the Dead. Now these are all first set type songs, but they're the heavy hitter. They're a little bit more emotionally mature versions of the first set list songs. We talked about El Paso before being a heavy hitter, Birdsong being a romantic heavy hitter.
When you hear that same sweet song again, you know why.
love each other, which, I'd say like this is the first show or really the first time I listened to They Love Each Other under a microscope. And it's the first time I really fell in love with this song. It's such a positive, energetic rocker with a great guitar shaking hook. Guitar shaking hook. And you know what I'm talking about when you listen to this. It's just a vibe. They love each other. It's just a vibe. The playing in the band, which they close with, is really driving. A blasting solo over an enchanting rhythmic section after the last chorus of the first part. So around like the 4:30 mark, this section kicks off with just a really interesting guitar approach from Jerry coming out of the chorus. It just sort of hits, you know. And listening to this first set, immediately, I just feel like, even though the show before had rockers and mostly easy rockers, this one, the first set, feels just way more energetic than the show before. At least that's sort of how I felt it. I felt like maybe, I don't know, were they traveling that long? What were they going through during that time from Chicago to Champaign? It feels like maybe they got a little bit more rested and they had a little bit more reflection to that first show, and then they were like, all right, we gotta hit them. We gotta get our energy up. That, or they just did cocaine.
Went right down South Colorado, West Texas bound. We stopped over in Santa Fe, that being the point, just about halfway. And it was the hottest fun of the day.
The second set is Wave That Flag. into Me and My Uncle. This version of Me and My Uncle, non-stop driving song. It is going a million miles per hour. Imagine, a horse just galloping at full speed. It's majestic. We're in the desert. And that horse is just going and telling us a story. That's the way this guitar is.
No, it seemed a shame. You know my uncle, he starts to play the game. You know I owe Jack in the winter take the hand.
It goes into Dark Star. So Me and My Uncle, then Dark Star. It's a short Dark Star, which tells me like maybe I don't trust the audience as much. Like here's a little taste of Dark Star, but it feels like the purpose of this Dark Star was a little bit more to be a prelude to Eyes, which they go into next. So they go from Dark Star to Eyes, which Eyes I'm sure brought down the house. Then going to China Doll, Eyes to China Doll, which is, like I said, one of those very interesting transitions where Eyes brings you in and China grabs you if you want it to be. And I think China did the same thing that Stella did the show before that. It's the same sort of mechanism. We're like, we're going to give you the sunshine, and then like everything in the world, it's going to sunset into something. And they sunset Eyes into Stella the night before, and they sunset Eyes into China Doll this night. And I think both have the same sort of impact. That goes into Around and Around, going down the road feeling bad, One More Saturday Night, which like I'm sure if they're playing these on Saturday nights, like the crowd, especially the frat crowd's like, oh my God, this is a Saturday. They're talking about today. So it probably gets people excited. They end the night with Casey Jones. Just like they end the night. So what are they experiencing in this 2-night run with the audience? What is the University of Illinois giving them? I'm not sure. And I would love to know if you were there. And if you were there and you're listening to the show, like, what's up? What's up, OG? First of all, I'm proud that you're listening to a podcast at your age. I think it's kind of cool. But secondly, like, you probably are cool because you listened to the Grateful Dead in '73 and you were there. The Fighting Illini, I'm sure you were still losing to Penn State, but I'm sure it was a great experience being a college kid there. My idea of college and my college experience were so different. I feel like how I approach college the same way I approach living in New York City is that I had an expectation of who I am in that space, who I was in that space, who I am now in this space. And I have an excitement towards so many different things in life. And I don't like to be in a place where I'm categorized or that I have to be self-inflicted into stuckness. I think like back then, and upwards to the 90s and maybe the early 2000s, like you chose a team, a musical team, and you had to stick with it. The punk rock kids couldn't like rap music, and the rap kids couldn't like Grateful Dead music or grunge music, and nobody liked classical. And I feel that we really shot ourselves in the foot by creating these tribes. The tribes are for sports teams, and music, you're just sort of stuck if you're not listening to everything that you possibly can to make your existence as a thinker more profound. That's how I approached college, is that I wanted to be, part of the beatnik crew of my film study friends and companions, but I also wanted to drink Natty Light and go to football games. So I wanted to have it all. And I think my mindset in the wanting to have it all is what attracts me to this band. I like the Grateful Dead because they're introspective, but they're cowboys. They're rockers, but they're jazz musicians and classical trained aficionados. And it's rock and roll music and all of that combined. And I think that that's who I want to be. And it's hard because you get somebody that says, this is who you are, this is what lane you have to stay in. And then you have to stay there, and you have to act the part. You got to put your costume on, and you can't make any costume changes. Which I think, like the Grateful Dead, we're like, we don't care. It's Halloween. Like, let's just go wild. Let's just do whatever we want. That's the American way, right? We could just do what we want. Not get caught up, into these trapdoors. Not get thrown into these trapdoors that society can give us. Who I am. Right, Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So if you only think about one thing, you're only one thing. No, that's not gonna be the way to do it. Right? You could talk about Michael Jordan in the same breath that you talk about Beethoven. Because, as the saying goes, I am man, nothing human is alien to me. Nothing human is alien to me. So if you want to live this human experience, you can't say no to certain things. You can't say no to certain mindsets. If you are a conservative or a liberal, you don't have to just sign up for what they tell you on the media that you're watching. You can listen to an idea and think, oh, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. We get caught up on these teams, and it's suffocating us as individuals. So if we can approach our thinking in terms of let's open it up and let everything in, you'll find your avenues. You'll find where you want to go and which streets you want to go down and which ways you want to turn. And as long as you aren't headed in a one-way direction, I think you're going to get a lot out of life. And if you listen to the Grateful Dead, just bringing it back here, experience those moments of each song and pay attention to the little parts, because the little parts change every single night, and that's what makes this band the greatest American band of all time. But a little bit more than that, that's what makes this band an example of what your brain could do if you just open up and let it ride.